Welcome back, fellow grievers. This episode, we're going to talk about why simple decisions feel extremely overwhelming and you often feel like you're almost freezing because of it. So, welcome back, friends. And like I said, this episode, I want to talk about making decisions and why that feels so hard when you are grieving and what to do about it. So, when somebody passes away, there are just a lot of decisions to be made. There are a lot of decisions on what to say the obituary. There are decisions to be made on what to do with their belongings, maybe their vehicles. Nowadays, what to do with like their social media accounts. There's how do I notify people? That right, like that's even like in just the first few days. This can carry on often and even go to the point where like years or so afterwards, you might be still trying to figure out different things with the estate, right? Like with my parents, there was an estate account. I've worked with people where like their spouse has passed away, and their spouse was the person who would handle the bills or the day-to-day different kind of workings of the home. And there's just decisions then, or even choices on how to handle things, when to get things fixed. And so all of these things play into just feeling exhausted, right? Because it just feels like overwhelm. And then when you are grieving, you have decision fatigue to begin with. Your brain chemically is trying to shelter you or protect you. And so you don't have quite the clear, sharp mind that you would have prior to this happening. And then it's just like, it feels just overwhelming, bombarding, right? Where it just is like a simple thing of like, okay, well, where do you want me to put this item? I don't know, right? Like you just freeze. And a lot of times too, most of my clients are women. Most of the time as women, we're people pleasers and we want to comfort them. We want to make sure everybody else feels safe and seen, and which is a good thing, right? Like I think, and I'm kind of generalizing here, as women, like we are typically more nurturing. So part of our nurturing response as women is want to care for others, which is not a bad thing. I would also generalize men and say most of the time for them, it's wanting to protect and defend, which again is not a bad thing. But sometimes this can come out in a way that works against us, right? I've often seen with men where it's kind of like they throw up a shield and it's like, well, if you want to do it, just don't do it. Why is that a hard choice? And for women, it's like, because like I feel bad if I don't. I don't want them to feel like I'm upset with them, right? Like we're trying to nurture and they're trying to protect. And that is a whole other conversation that could be had on the different ways that we communicate with each other, right? But for the sake of this, let's just say like women, for the most part, we're trying to people please. Um, and I would even say like there's a lot of people in my family that are kind of a degree more people pleasing than I am, and I still am more of a people pleaser than like my husband is, okay? So there's differences between all that. But we feel a connection between guilt and decision making. And we want to find a way to be able to tell the difference between kindness, but not abandoning ourself and doing it just because it works for everybody else and never thinking of ourselves. And this, again, takes practice. It's a balancing act, right? And there's other ways that we can make decisions when you're overwhelmed. We can make this easier. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later on. But I also want to say here that it is okay to disappoint others while you are caring for your grieving heart. Okay? It's okay to say no to things. It's okay for them to be like, "Oh man, like I really wish we could have got together." It's okay. People can feel disappointed. It's okay. So, I want to let's talk about first a little bit. I know I've talked about this quite a bit in the past, but just why grief makes decision making hard. Okay, so this again, we're going to talk about grief. It affects your concentration, it affects your memory, it affects everything. Okay? Your brain is using an enormous amount of energy to process the loss. And so when all that energy goes to that part, it has less energy for other little things over here that don't feel like they really matter. And so oftentimes I did this a lot. I see other people doing this is we tell ourselves like, "Oh, I should be able to handle this. I should be able to figure this out. Why is this so hard?" Right? Where like maybe the week before it didn't feel overwhelming to pick out your clothes. Now it's just like, I don't know. I can't decide. What do you think? I don't know. Like, what are other people going to be wearing? Right? Like we go into it like another level deeper. And what you're experiencing when that happens is a normal grief response. And like I said, in the first kind of initial weeks, months, up to probably a year, that's going to be more intense. But this will keep coming and showing up and happening, I would say up to years afterwards, based off the decisions and the different things that you have to do after the first few months. Now, this is for anybody who is finds himself being like, yeah, I'm a people pleaser. Yeah, I want to make everybody else happy. So, again, as women, a lot of times we're taught to keep the peace, make everybody else comfortable, right? We don't want to disappoint people. And after somebody dies, there's just a lot of opinions that come in. And people try to mean well, but there's just a lot of opinions. And that just piles on more almost pressure on making the right decision then when there's all these opinions coming in. And so people have opinions on what you should do with the belongings, how long you should grieve, whether you should move on, how you should spend holidays, right? Like everything. There's opinions on everything. And so instead of saying, okay, like, what will make everybody else happy? Well, what would everybody else want to do? What does everybody else think? Instead of doing that, which will just throw in more noise and more chaos in your brain, ask, what do I need? What do I need? Because otherwise, you will find yourself exhausted. There will be some resentment that creeps in. You'll have a lot of anxiety. You'll feel kind of like disconnected from yourself. And ultimately, it delays your own healing because you're focused on everybody else. So, a few practical, simple ways to reduce this overwhelm is to, I'll walk through. There's five-ish things. First, delay the non-essential decisions. Okay, like I know for myself when there is a big decision to be made, all of a sudden my brain wants to pull in all the little decisions that will need to be made eventually, and it's just like, oh my gosh, like I don't know, like. And it's like, well, I have to decide. And it's like, okay, but do I? Do I have to decide today? Can I make sure I get some sleep? Can I get a week's night's sleep before I make that decision? I know that having a clear head and some time and some quiet will help me decide if I want to do the thing or not to do the thing. And so, not every decision needs to be made today. It often helps me if I write down or kind of pause and are like, what absolutely needs to be decided today? Okay, maybe there's an RSVP that's like today is the cutoff, the deadline they've asked. And even that, I'd be like, okay, like if I answer tomorrow, it's not the end of the world, right? So I would just ask myself, like, what needs to be done today? Then limit your options, okay? So many times there's so many choices and then we just again we freeze because there's so many decisions, like there's so many options that we could take that we don't know. So I like to start with saying, what do I know? Okay, well, yes, I want to go to this baby shower, but when I break it down, it's like, well, would I bring all the kids with? Do I want to go for the whole time? Would I feel better off if I just mailed them a gift and a nice card? What, right? So I really like slow it down and it's like, well, what do I know? Okay, well, No, I know I really want to go because I want to visit with some people. I want to see them. Okay, I want to go. Okay, next. Well, do I want to bring the kids? Nope. I think that's going to be too much. It's going to be too overwhelming. I really won't get to visit with the people that I want to visit with. So, nope. Okay, I'm not going to bring the kids. What else do I know? Okay, well, I know it's at this venue. I know it's at this time. I know that I don't want to stay that whole time. I know that I'm going to have my husband drop me off and pick me up at this set time because then I'll be like, no, my husband's waiting for me. Okay, so like I just kind of go back and be like, okay, what do I know? And then I can just start just to decide from there instead of being like, oh, well, I want to go, but I don't really want, right? Like our brain just starts to get overwhelmed with all when there's so many choices. As you go through this, so this is kind of step three. As you go through this, ask yourself, what do I want? What do I need? And what will bring me peace? So maybe, okay, I want to go to this baby shower, but again, what I need is to have a few go-to phrases, and we're going to talk about that next. A few go-to phrases to say to people who come up to me and are like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I heard about your parents," or "Oh my gosh, like, did you find any more details?" Right? Like, just have a few go-to phrases. That's what I really need. Maybe what I need afterwards too is to know I'm going to be emotionally exhausted and drained from just that short interaction with people for an hour. So I'm gonna be like, okay, like, husband, you're in charge of supper, or maybe I'm just gonna make frozen pizzas. When I get home, I'm going to go lay down. I need a 20-minute nap or at least some quiet to recharge. So that's what I need. What do I want? Well, I want people to say the perfect thing at the right time, not ask for too much information, but say things that are really loving, supporting. Okay, well, will that happen? Probably not. But what will bring me peace? Again, I always go back to like being prepared, having a plan, walking through what are some of my phrases that I'm going to say when people say things that I know they're going to that are not helpful and not kind. So the fourth kind of step is those go-to phrases. And I think that it's good to start to be okay with disappointing people because again, you can't be everywhere all the time. And I know for me, there was a period of time in my life where I thought I could be everything and everyone to everybody at all times. And the only person who ended up suffering a lot of times was me and my children and my husband because I had very little energy left for them at the end of the day. I was so busy trying to be the perfect nurse, the perfect like mom that then I was like, oh my gosh, like I can't take it. Like, right, I never would give myself a break. And so it's okay to start disappointing people because ultimately what I found was I was just disappointing myself all the time and I would just live in that all the time. And so especially when you're grieving, it's okay to start having a voice. Like, I think it's the perfect time because people will like excuse it away, be like, well, they're probably just really upset. They're really sad, right? Like, I think it's a good time. So practice disappointing people. And I also think like start small, right? Having a few go-to phrases that you just start practicing saying and be like, oh, wow, I did it. Like the world did not end. It was okay. Like they weren't even mad, right? Like just start small. And I always tell people like no is a complete sentence. So you can just start with saying no or no thank you. Another one is that's like that won't work for me. I'm not able to do that right now. I don't want to talk about that right now. Okay, like those are just a few little phrases that you can just have in your back pocket to be like when people say things or this is my phrase of like thank you for thinking of me, but I'm not able to do that right now. Right? That's pretty simple. And then people will, right, if you text it, people read it how they want to read it anyway. Even if you say the most polite thing in text messages, it can be misconstrued. So, if you need to go back and clarify things later or work it out with that friend or person, like that's okay. But just for right now, like I do think people are pretty understanding. And this is kind of my final tip, I guess, is remember that someone being disappointed does not mean that you've done something wrong. Okay? And I want to say that again for the people in the back. Someone being disappointed does not mean that you have done something wrong. Okay? Being disappointed is a part of the human experience. People will experience before you, they'll experience it with you, and they'll experience it after you. And so it does not mean that you've done anything wrong. And sometimes it might mean that you did what was exactly right for you in that moment. And I want you to make that a priority right now while you are grieving. And again, not in a very mean, condescending way to people around you, just in a very loving, like, because I love myself and I'm grieving and I want to take time to heal. And so I'm going to be okay letting people feel the feeling of disappointment because I am going through a lot of the feeling of sadness. So I also want to leave you with how Jesus also did not meet every expectation that people had of him. In fact, I would say most of the time he did the opposite. There was a lot of expectations they had for the Savior, and he didn't meet any of them. And that's where then I know letting people be disappointed or not living up to their expectation isn't something that I need to feel guilty about. People expected a king that would come and fight a war and defeat the Romans, right? There was a lot of expectation around the Savior. And instead, here came a man who died on a cross. He was not at all what they thought. And he allowed it, right? Because that wasn't what he was there for. And so that is not what we're there for. We're not there to meet everybody's expectations. I also want, Jesus, he had quiet. He went away to pray. He said no, right? There was a lot of people he turned away because he saw their hearts and he saw that's not what is best for you. And so I really want us to be okay with saying no. I really want us to be okay with turning to Jesus in that and asking for his direction on that because he'll guide us, he'll lead us with that. He's already done it. So, in closing, I feel like this has gotten a little long. I feel like the last couple episodes I've done would be a little long, so my apologies. But in closing, I just want to say again, start small. It doesn't have to be everything at once, right? Because that's what grief does. That's what just life does, right? Like we go from one extreme to the other. And so just say, okay, nope, I'm gonna start small. I'm gonna practice saying no to one thing today. I'm gonna pause and say what really needs to be done today. Just doing one decision at a time. And then if it's enough for the day, be like, I cannot make any more decisions. Be like, okay, that's enough. I'll start again tomorrow. So, as always, I'm praying for you guys. And always, I'm just praying for you. So, you are loved. Oh, and also, I also want to say I have my summer grief video series, and it walks through some of this. It's not all of it, but I really encourage you guys. It's just it's so helpful. There are three really short videos, and it just helps you manage all of this while life is still happening. Because that for me was the hardest part, was trying to show up, trying to be a mom, trying to be a wife, while inside I just felt like I was dying and I couldn't breathe half the time. And I feel like I had nobody to talk to and nobody to lean on. And so I don't want people to feel that way. I don't want people to feel alone. I don't want you to have to struggle with that alone. I've been there. I know what that's like, and it's awful. So go to catholicgriefcoach.com or check below this video. I'll post it there. Or also, if you are on my email list, you'll get it there. So, all right, you guys, you are loved. We'll take the next steps together. God bless.